Time now for today's Front Page, a digest of news while we were asleep, and since yesterday's broadcast, we go back to the Israeli-Hamas conflict. This from Fox News. The Israeli Defense Forces said today it has dropped leaflets in the Gaza Strip making a direct appeal to Palestinians to provide Israel with information on captives held by Hamas. If you want a better future for you and your children, take action and provide us with solid and useful information as soon as possible regarding the hostages in your area, according to the leaflet. The Israelis are offering protection, even a monetary reward, to any Palestinian who comes forward with verifiable information leading to the rescue of Israeli hostages. The Israeli army assures you that it will put forth maximum effort to provide you and your home with security as well as a financial reward, said the leaflet, guaranteeing complete confidentiality. Fox News is reporting the House Foreign Affairs Committee will host a classified briefing on Iran today at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time after senior defense officials reported significant escalation of attacks against U.S. troops in the Middle East. These attacks have Iranian fingerprints all over them, according to a senior U.S. defense official and senior U.S. military official who spoke on a background briefing with reporters yesterday. Both officials suggest attacks will likely increase on U.S. troops in the coming days. The defense official reiterated that Iran is funding, equipping, guiding, and directing partners and proxies across the Middle East, including Lebanese Hezbollah militia groups in Iran, Syria, and Yemen. Quote, I think it's fair to say when you see this uptick in activity and attacks by many of these groups, there are Iranian fingerprints all over it. A senior Hamas leader is lying to the entire world, saying there are no hostages. This from Fox News. A senior Hamas leader denied that the more than 200 Israelis and foreigners currently held captive in Gaza are hostages, and then gave conditions for their release in a television interview. Khalid Mashal, formerly the chief of the terrorist group's Politburo, told Sky News in an interview that civilians being held by Hamas will only be freed if Israel stops its bombardment of Gaza, all the while denying the captives were hostages. They are not hostages, said Mashal, adding that the Israelis are being held in different locations in Gaza. He claimed Israeli airstrikes have killed more than 22 of the captives and said the bombardment must cease for the hostages to be released. Quote, let them stop this aggression. You will find the mediators like Qatar and Egypt and some Arab countries and others will find a way to have them released, and we'll send them to their homes, said Mashal. He claimed the hostage releases cannot happen while Israel continues to hit Gaza with airstrikes. An Israeli hostage released by Hamas described her ordeal after she was kidnapped by gunmen and taken into the tunnel system in Gaza during the Palestinian militant group's deadly assault on Israel October 7th. She said, quote, I went through hell. Lashaved Lifshitz, a frail 85-year-old grandmother who was one of the two hostages released by Hamas yesterday, recounted the moments that militants snatched her from her home in the kibbutz of Nir Oz and drove her away on a motorbike toward Gaza. She called that a painful act, during which she said she was beaten and sustained bruises. Lifshitz said she was forced to descend into an underground tunnel system she likened to a spider web, where she was greeted by, quote, people who told us we believe in the Quran and promised not to harm her and her fellow hostages. Lifshitz said she was initially grouped together with 25 other people before her captors separated her into a smaller group with 4 individuals from her kibbutz. She then said that they slept on mattresses on the floors of the tunnels, ate the same food as Hamas fighters, and received regular treatment from doctors during her incarceration. The London Daily Mail is reporting that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, has drawn the ire of the Israeli military by delaying the invasion of Gaza to eliminate Hamas, with Western allies in the EU pushing for a ceasefire. Israeli Prime Minister clashed with leading figures in the country's defense forces over his decision to delay the incursion, which military chiefs said are very eager to start, according to the London Telegraph. Some members stayed within the European Union that have pushed for a ceasefire in the war between Israel and the terror group Hamas in order to deliver more humanitarian aid to Palestinian civilians in the besieged Gaza Strip. Israeli military said on yesterday, they were preparing for unrelenting attacks to dismantle Hamas. The French Prime Minister is calling for an international coalition against Hamas. This from Reuters. French President Emmanuel Macron proposed today, that an international coalition fighting against Islamic State in Iraq and Syria be widened to include the fight against the Palestinian militant group Hamas in Gaza. Macron gave no details on how the U.S.-led coalition of dozens of countries, of which Israel is not a part, could be involved. Speaking alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem, Macron stressed that France and Israel shared terrorism as their common enemy. Quote, France is ready for the international coalition against the Daesh, in which we are taking part for operations in Iraq and Syria to also fight against Hamas, he told reporters, referring to the Islamic State. Macron, who warned against the risks of a regional conflict, also said the fight against Hamas must be without mercy, but not without rules. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did not directly comment on the Macron proposal, but said the fight was a battle between the axis of evil and the free world. The British Prime Minister is criticizing Metropolitan Police in London for not arresting chanting Palestinians. This from the Express UK. Rishi Sunak told police to tackle pro-Palestinian extremism head-on after fury over the failure to arrest protesters chanting jihad. In a damning response to Scotland Yard's handling of demonstrations, the Prime Minister dismissed claims that officers need new powers to deal with hate crimes on Britain's streets and told them to get on with the job using laws already in place. He warned that calls for Muslim armies to rise up are a threat to the Jewish community and, quote, our democratic values, unquote. Updating ministers of parliament on the latest developments following the October 7th atrocity, the PM officers must show the full force of the law against extremist demonstrators. United States politics. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican from Georgia, is introducing a resolution today to censure Representative Rashida Tlaib, the Democrat from Michigan, accusing the Progressive Squad member of anti-Semitic activity and sympathizing with terrorist organizations. This from Fox News. The Democrat Party has done nothing to hold her accountable. They've done nothing to rein her in, and no one else here has done it. And so I thought it was the right to list examples of. This isn't just new. This isn't a one-off thing. This is exactly who she is, said Representative Greene to Fox News. Greene accused Tlaib of leading a pro-Palestinian protest on Capitol Hill last week. Hundreds of demonstrators called for a ceasefire after the terror group Hamas staged an unprecedented bloody incursion from the Palestinian enclave of the Gaza Strip into southern Israel October 7th, killing hundreds of civilians and prompting an ongoing response from the Israeli military. American Jews feel let down by the American left. This from the Los Angeles Times. Like many American Jews, Jonah Goldman sides politically with the left, including its push for the right of Palestinians. But in the aftermath of the Hamas gruesome raid on Israel this month, Goldman has never felt so isolated from people he long considered his allies. He was shocked by how quickly friends mobilized for the Palestinian cause while failing to condemn the attack. The militants killed more than 1,400 people, most of them civilians, slaughtering families, including children, and taking 200 more hostage. Good people he never considered anti-Semitic suddenly seemed supportive of Jewish genocide. The left in America has really let us down, said Goldman. He's 31 years old. He lives in Washington. He, with the Washington area, considers himself a Democrat and a socialist. Speaking of Democrat socialists, this from Fox News. The Democrat Socialists of America, founding member Maurice Eiserman, announced Monday that he is leaving the organization for its response to the Hamas terror attacks on Israeli civilians. Eiserman, who is still described on the socialist website as a founding member of DSA, penned a piece for The Nation, headlined, quote, "Why I Just Quit DSA," unquote. I left to protest the DSA leadership's politically and morally bankrupt response to the horrific Hamas October 7th anti-Jewish pogrom that took the lives of 1,400 people, mostly civilians, and saw over 200 hostages carried off to Gaza. Both groups of victims included children and infants, he wrote. Quote, in his statement on October 7th, made no mention, let alone offering any criticism of Hamas, declaring instead, today's events are a direct result of Israel's apartheid regime, a regime that receives billions in funding from the United States. In domestic anti-crime activities, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser announced a new anti-crime initiative yesterday as violence across the district begins to and continues to climb. Bowser, Acting Police Chief Pamela Smith, and other city officials unveiled the Addressing Crime Trends Now Act, or ACT. Bowser said the legislation will address recent crime trends and give law enforcement more tools to hold criminals accountable while working to keep neighborhoods safe. In Bowser's new Act Now plan, the act of being masked while committing a crime would be illegal again. Bowser is bringing back that law after it was terminated at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. The plan would also create criminal penalties, making it illegal to organize or direct anyone in a theft-for-profit scheme, including many of the smash and grab rings seen recently. Other measures included allowing the police chief to declare temporary drug-free zones to address open-air drug marketing and loitering. And finally, this morning in the front page, this from CNN. An off-duty Alaskan Airlines pilot tried to bring down a flight. An off-duty pilot who was riding in the cockpit of an Alaska Airlines flight en route from Washington State to San Francisco is facing dozens of attempted murder charges after he tried to shut down the plane's engine mid-flight, according to authorities. The suspect, identified as Alaska Airlines pilot Joseph D. Emerson, he's 44 years of age, attempted to cut off the fuel to the engines, but quick action of the aircraft's captain and first officer kept the engines from failing completely, according to the airline. Adding Emerson was subdued by the flight crew. The flight was forced to divert to Portland, Oregon, where the suspect was taken into custody by Portland police, according to the agency. Emerson is being held without bail in the Multnomah County Jail, has been charged in Oregon with 83 counts of felony attempted murder, 83 counts of reckless endangerment, and 1 count of endangering an aircraft, according to the booking records. He is expected in court later this afternoon. And that is today's front page.